And welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast following a little bit of an extended break over the FA Cup weekend. We arrived back with a bang though as Sunderland travelled to Turf Moor for a massive automatic promotion six-pointer in mid-January. And when we play Burnley, there's only ever one man that'll allow on the preview show. No, it isn't Sean Dyche. It is the always excellent Joe from the TurfCast. Joe, mate, we've caught up 5 minutes beforehand, but let's pretend we haven't. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, getting by, mate. Not too bad. In the middle of a house sale. So, unbeknown to the listeners, because we don't do this as a video, the famous background, as you said, will change. But if they want to
Yeah,
watch,
that is a shame.
yeah, but if they want to watch your preview podcast, they'll see what we're talking about. So, we'll drop
Yeah.
some links at the end there. But look, let's get straight into the nitty gritty. I normally ask you at the last game, but I'm going to start with something a bit different. It's a big old game Friday. Let's not deny it. You know, point in the season, January, we're right in the mix. Top four is pulling away. How nervous are you? Feels like a big old game, doesn't it?
I'll be honest with you, mate. I think I'm past the nervous stage now. At 36-year-old, I don't tend to get too nervous anymore. There's been certain games recently where I do have a little bit of butterflies. Probably the Blackburn games are probably the ones where I will get a bit nervous. But even then, I'd be nervous like 2 weeks beforehand for that match. Now I'll get nervous on the morning of and when I'm driving in. But yeah, I don't deny it's a massive game. It's an interesting one as well because I've been sat in this room so many times, and I've wrote it on Twitter before as well, and never criticise Sunderland on Twitter because you will get berated. But I remember saying like, I expect Sunderland will start fading away, and I've said it time and time again, sat here, but every single week. You just dig out another result and just continue to prove me wrong. And now I do think it is a top four rather than a top three. Even so much as like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I think again, sacrilege this, apologies to any Sunderland fans that will be listening to this. I actually said it to a Middlesbrough fan. I'm like, I think Sunderland might fade away and you might even have a chance of not taking over them, but maybe sort of like, battling them for fourth. But no, not anymore. I think the top four are the top four. I think the next two spots are just for playoff chasing teams, obviously fifth and sixth. But yeah, it's an interesting one. It's going to be interesting to see how you get on, especially with the new additions. Obviously, you've got Lefay over the line, and I've seen stuff reported in the last couple of days that Cannon may or may not be joining. He's strengthening a promotion rival by the looks of it, but we don't know which promotion rival yet from our perspective. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how you do and what sort of style you go for away from home and whether Lefay plays or not.
Hope he does, because we're all obviously very excited. But looking at your last game, it's hard to make a judgment on anything. We both went to extra time. For people who didn't know, you went to extra time against Reading, but you won as opposed to us getting beat. I'm not going to really ask you about the performance because there's probably not much point. You played Reading, like with all due respect to
Yeah.
Reading, they've got nothing on most championship sides and they're struggling. They've got their own challenges. But would you have preferred some rest, not just in terms of the extra time, in terms of the next round? I know no one wants to lose, but like I'm not that disappointed we haven't got a game when you will, if that makes sense, considering both teams' positions.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them situations where obviously we went 1-0 up in that game, and I'm thinking, all right, fair enough. Yeah, decent. Get a nice fourth round tie and hopefully kick on from there. I would like a cup run. Like I think the year we absolutely tanked the championship, we got to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. We got to think it was the fifth round of the League Cup. So we did quite well in both cups that year, and it didn't affect us that year. But we were head and shoulders above anybody in the Championship, I think it's fair to say, that year. I think a good cup run can help, to be fair. But again, if we'd have lost the match, if it was against another Championship team like yourselves, obviously you lost to Stoke, I don't think I'd have cared. It's interesting, though, because I did say this on the podcast. I was like, when it went to extra time, I remember thinking, or maybe just I wouldn't be bothered if we lose the match. And I got a few criticism on the news saying you should never want to lose a match. Well, I didn't want to lose. I just said I wouldn't have minded if we did. The annoying thing is this time is normally the third round and the fourth round. They're like specific weekends where you're not playing in the Championship or the Premier League. Whereas this year, even as early as the fourth round, we've had to move our home game against Oxford. So now that's going to be on a Tuesday night. So I'm not too bothered about the game against Southampton in the fourth round. I'm more bothered now about this game against Oxford on a Tuesday night. And with all due respect, I'm happy that it's only Oxford. Watch them beat us now. I mean, we didn't beat them down at the Kassam. That were 0-0. And if it were a massive game against somebody like yourselves or Leeds, for example, on a Tuesday night, and then after we played a few games with the fixtures piling up, it might have been a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I'm happy we're through. I would never really want to lose. I just remember thinking at the time when it went to 1-1 and extra time, thinking, well, would I be that bothered? Probably not. I wouldn't have lost any sleep over it anyway.
Looking at the league form, if you look at your last league game, you obviously came off the back of that big win against Blackburn, which I sat down and watched the entire thing. And you've actually not tasted defeat since the 3rd of November, I think, in the league away to Millwall.
Yeah.
Sounds like a daft question, and it sounds like I'm setting you up to fail here because this is a recorded podcast, but you're probably going to do the same to me. Based on your recent form, how confident are you that Burnley can become one of the two sides out of the four that are currently going for automatic promotion?
You know what? I don't know. As the season's gone on, but at the start of the season, before a ball was kicked, I was like, yeah, Burnley will win the league. They'll finish in the top two at the very minimum. But that was when we had Wilson Odobert, Wout Vegas, Zeki Amdouna, Ari Netmioric, Dara O'Shea. We sold all these players. And obviously, we had that mad week, mad couple of weeks when we were selling all the players, and obviously in the middle of that, we had to play you, which was the game that nobody wanted. I think you were top of the league at the time and had won your opening two matches. And then we lost that match. I think there were a lot of mitigating circumstances around why we lost that match. No complaints in terms of balance of play. You were the better team on the day. You definitely deserved to win the match. But I think that if it wasn't for all the noise surrounding the club and all the players being sold, it could very well have been a different story. After that, we've done well. We've steadied the ship. Yes, we did lose at Millwall. A lot of fans lost their heads. Feel like it's the modern world these days, though. There were Parker outshouts when we were 1-0 down at Carroll Road against Norwich, and then we won the game 2-1, and they've all been deleted. Do you know what I mean? There's some fans that are a little bit eccentric and aren't massive fans of the football, and even if we lost against you guys on Friday night, we'll be saying, Parker out, this isn't good enough, even though we're like unbeaten in what, 13, 14, I think it is at the minute. So would I put my mortgage on Burnley getting the top two? As it stands, no, I wouldn't. As the season's gone on, I've grown more and more confident. I'm not going to lie. However, I was asked about 4 weeks ago where I think we'd finished, and I think I said then third. I said Leeds would win it, Sheffield United would be second, and Burnley will be third. Now, if you were to put a gun to my head and ask me to predict where we'd finish, I would probably say second. However. Obviously, yourselves have strengthened. I want to see how you play with Lefay. You look like you might strengthen a little bit more, or Tom Cannon will go to Sheffield United. He's going somewhere. Put it that way. He's like I said, he's strengthening a promotion rival. So, yeah, at the minute, I'm quietly optimistic. I think is the best way to describe it. I think we've conceded 9 goals all season. Nobody has scored more than 1 goal against us. And obviously, we conceded up at the stadium a lot. In my head, I don't know what it were for months. In my head, I had that as 2-0, but it was obviously only 1-0. And obviously, we kept a clean sheet at Leeds. We kept a clean sheet at Bramall Lane. We've kept a clean sheet at Ewood Park. We've kept a clean sheet at Middlesbrough. We keep clean sheets, and I would imagine we have the most in the league at the minute. Obviously, we've definitely got the best defensive record in the league at the minute. The only team that comes close to us is Sheffield United on 17. So they've conceded 8 more goals than us, and that's nearly 100% more goals than us. It's insane. Yeah, we're quietly confident at the minute, but I would like to add a striker to the mix and maybe see a little bit more going forward. But I understand if we did that, we'd probably have to sacrifice some of the clean sheets.
It's interesting you mentioned the clean sheets because that's one thing that really stuck out. When you look at like the league tables and you go to home form and the away form and you split them up, you actually got the best away form in the league. But when you look
Yeah.
into the stats and stuff like that, the more standout stats come at home. Yes, you've drawn 6, but you've also won 6. You haven't lost any, where you have lost a couple away from home, but you've only conceded 4 of those goals in the 12 games that you've had, which is, look, it's a really good record. Why is it you're particularly solid defensively across the board, but specifically defensively good at home? I mean, 4 goals in 12 games is silly, really. What's that? I'm not good at maths, but it's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good. Yeah, I think I saw a stat recently from Sky Bet, obviously the sponsors of the championship, that did say At this stage of the season, after 26 games, it's the best ever defensive record in this league since the rebrand. Obviously, the rebrand were what, early 2000s, something like that. So it's the best defensive record for the last 20 odd years at this stage. I think um, Jose Mourinho's Chelsea after at this stage have conceded more as well. Obviously, I think they've kept the most clean sheets in Premier League history. And have the best defensive record in Premier League history. And if the Championship was part of Europe's top five leagues and it became the top six, Burnley would have the best defensive record in those leagues. It's because of a few things. We've got Maxime Esteve, who is an absolute. I've said it before. I think I said it on your previous show. On the previous show, when we played up at the Stadium of Light, I genuinely believe, and I will die on this hill, he is the best defender in the Championship. He is fantastic. He's got a big future ahead of him. How we managed to keep hold of him, for example, and lose Dara O'Shea, who is decent, but I think Esteve is better, is mind-boggling. Then we've had CJ Egan-Riley now. He's been a bit of a surprise because he never really played for us. He's been out on loan at PSV. He's been out loan in some other places as well. I can't remember exactly where. And he was never really part of company's plans. Then he came in the first couple of games of the season. I think we played Joe Worrell alongside Maxime Esteve. Then he got injured. And then CJ Egan-Riley come in. And he's absolutely fantastic. Again, he's a good defender. He's probably not as good as a defender as Maxime Esteve, but he's probably a better all-round player, if that makes sense. He's good with the ball at his feet. He will ping a pass 30, 40 yards to the wingers. He's an absolutely brilliant defender. The worry with him is he's out of contract in the summer. So we're not sure whether we're going to cash in or something in January. I hope we don't, and obviously keep him for the promotion push. And then, we can go with our best wishes if he does want to go, because the rumours are he's asking for a lot of money. But then it's not even just that as well. Like James Trafford, he got a lot of stick last season in the Championship. I was one of the in the Premier League. I was one of the people giving him the stick. He wasn't good enough for the Premier League, and I stand by that. I think he showed over the course of the season that he wasn't. But in the Championship, I think there's only maybe another two keepers that you could argue are just as good as him. And I think probably Cooper is probably the best keeper in the Championship at Sheffield United. But I think Trafford's well up there. And he's done so well as well. Like, because last year he struggled with coming and collecting crosses. He struggled with organising his defence. Like, he just wasn't confident. And I think it was the fact that he was having a poor season. Whereas this year he's bellowing instructions. He's coming, he's collecting crosses. He's punching them. He knows when to catch. He knows when to punch. I don't know if you remember it last year. There was a massive debate around a foul when he came out for a cross against Luton. In my opinion, it was a foul, but he shouldn't have come for that either. It was a bad decision for him to come for it. He was then fouled, but it was a bad. He would not come for that this year. He would stay on his line. Like, he has got so much better. There's obviously some rumours, and again, I apologise for swearing on your podcast, but there's some rumours that he might be going to Newcastle. That won't be happening in January. It might happen in the summer. And then you've got the fullbacks as well. Like Bashir Humphries has done very, very well. Connor Roberts, he drops 7 out of 10s every single week in the Championship. He's a good Championship fullback. So it's the personnel, and it's not just the personnel. We don't take many risks. Like, we don't throw bodies forward. Like, the fullbacks will get forward, but it's very rare they get forward where it's a big risk where they might be left short at the back. Like, we set up in a certain way to play cautiously, to play slowly, and then build slowly and from the back. And I just think the whole of it just knitted perfectly. I would, like I said, to maybe sacrifice some. Like, I'm not too bothered about having the best defensive record in the Championship. If we had the worst defensive record in the Championship but scored 500 goals, I wouldn't care, because we'd probably be top of the league. So it's a nice stat to have, but I think sometimes, and I said earlier, some fans can be a bit erratic and get a little bit arsy about Parker and things like that, and I do think that's the style of play. I think if we were a little bit more adventurous and went forward a little bit more often, like we did under Company, the fans will be loving it, because we are second, and I think we're having a good season, all things considered. I know we came down from the Prem last year, but with what I just mentioned earlier about all the players being sold, I think to be in second in this position says that we're doing a very good job, and Scott Parker's done a very good job.
Looking at the home form, you like us, you're unbeaten at home, so I feel bad picking on the home form, but in the context of this game where we're visiting Burnley, Stoke, Derby, Borough, QPR, Blackburn, Preston, all picked up points at Burnley, literally points. No one's picked up 3 points.
Yeah.
Does the setup and the fact that you are cautious play into that some games you just haven't created enough or finished enough or been clinical enough? What I'm kind of asking is, how have those teams picked up points at Burnley?
They've literally just come to the turf, sat back, sat in a low block, and gone break us down. And we've gone, we can't do it. There's certain teams like Watford have come to the turf and attacked us, which I suspect that's what Sunderland will do. And we've ended up winning the game quite comfortably. You are better than Watford, so we'll see how. Thing is, it was weird with Watford because a lot of people were saying they're the worst team I've seen at the turf this year. So they definitely were not the worst team. It's just because they just got the tactics wrong. Tom Cleverley got his tactics wrong, and I like Tom Cleverley. I think he's going to do a good job at Watford. The fact that there's rumours that he might get sacked is absolutely scandalous. But he did get it wrong that day. If you want to pick up a point at the turf, like you say, nobody's won, and you're right, nobody has won. Blackburn and Preston, and I probably would have jumped off a bridge if this happened. But Blackburn and Preston both came very close to winning games at the turf. They both had an offside goal disallowed that was onside. And what they did, they both just sat back in that low block and then hit us on the counter. Sunderland, I think, are capable of doing that, but I'm not sure whether you will. I don't know. Again, I guess you'll tell me more on your style of play and how you've been this season. But I feel like you like to control games and like to get on top. I don't think you will let us have the ball. Again, I'm not sure. I haven't watched too much of Sunderland, just a couple of games here and there. I watched you at home to Leeds, and obviously I went to the Stadium of Light earlier in the season, and you absolutely dominated. Like I said, just strangled the life out of us. But yeah, these teams. They come to the turf, they stick 11 men behind the ball, and then they just say, break us down, but we do not have the creative flair to be able to do it. And everything I've just said about how good our defensive results are and how good our defensive stats are, that's why sometimes there's been all these games where, I think literally every game there that you mentioned, apart from the Blackburn game, was 0-0. And that's what teams do. They come to the turf, they sit back, and they show no adventure whatsoever. Blackburn scored an absolute fluke of a goal. I don't know if you remember it. It's obviously a really, really, really good goal. But he's just thought there's nothing on. I'm twatting it. That's all he's done, and it's gone in. Like there's no way they score if that doesn't happen. And again, Preston, other than the offside, there's no way they score. There's no way Derby were going to score. Stoke were never going to score. Like they just come to the turf and sit back. And I think in these kind of games, this will work in our favour. I'm hoping, maybe again, I'm just being optimistic, blindly optimistic, because I'm hoping the likes, because our next two home games are Sunderland and Leeds. So I'm hoping that both of you guys come to the turf and come at us, because then you'll leave gaps. And I think you might score if you do that, but I think you'll leave gaps and then we can hopefully exploit them. And then at the very least, it's not another boring 0-0 tedious Scott Parker Ball game, because yeah, I'm sick of going to the turf, especially on Tuesday nights and Friday nights. I hate night matches. It's cold, it's wet. I'd rather be at home in front of the fire. But yeah, at least we'll be entertained even if it's 2. I'd rather draw 2-2 against you than draw 0-0 like we did against Stoke.
I remember the last time we played each other, you just came down and there was a lot of changes in your team. I remember the team came out and went, that's not what I expected from Burnley. So I'm not gonna deny that. But nonetheless, it was still a decent team in the context of the championship season. And we spoke beforehand. We had the preview show as we normally would, and we were both unbeaten, and we both won our first 2 games. In the case of right, who cracks first? Now we won 1-0. People will remember. Romain Mundle scored X, Y, and Z. I remember after that game going, hang on a minute, we played really well there. We deserved that. And I feel like we could have scored more in the first half. And if we've taken a team, despite all the things that are going on with it, apart in the first half and could have scored a few more goals that are expected to go back up or one of the favourites to go back up, are we more than just a flash in the pan? As it was, we continued on and we were top of the league until I feel it was like September, maybe start of October. What a lot of people did, you mentioned before you'd done it as well, that a lot of people felt something would drop off. But we're now into mid-January. Yeah. We are part of that top 4 teams that are pulling away from the rest. And I mean, the whole 4 of us. But I did see a tweet from yourself. It was like 2 weeks ago, around the Enzo Lafay signing, so actually maybe last week. And you said Sunderland aren't going away. As a team involved directly with us in the automatic promotion race, how much of a threat is Sunderland to the top 2, the automatic promotion spots, if you want to say?
I'd say 25%. I think all 4 could get it. I think if I had to choose 2, like I said at the minute, it probably would just be us and Leeds. But again, I haven't seen you with Lafay. I might change my mind on Friday night if you come and he has a brilliant midfield display and just completely dictates the pace of the game, pings 3 in the top bins from 45 yards. That opinion, it changes every week. Like I said, 3 weeks ago it was Leeds and Sheffield United. I think about 6 weeks ago it were yourselves and Sheffield United. I think I went on a Betfair podcast recently. Well, not Betfair. Betfair sponsor it, The Sportsman, and they said, "Who do you think will win the league?" I said Sheffield United. I think they'll finish 3rd at the minute. You know what I mean? It changes every week. But yeah, I think at the minute, all four of them teams has around a similar percentage. I think probably you would lean more towards Leeds, for example, but I think at the minute it can go anyway. I think all four of them teams have a very good chance, especially with the signings. I have been saying recently, like I said, I think Sheffield United will start fading away, but now they've brought in or looking like they're going to be bringing in Cannon because I think he's leaning more towards them than you at the minute. Again, I'm not sure. You'll be obviously have you rated the ground more on that than I do. That will improve them. They have just lost. I can't remember the name of the centre back that's just had a big injury. But I remember thinking, oh, they've got weaker because of that. But
Suter.
then, yeah, that's the guy, Suter. Yeah, he's a very, very good centre back. I think he did that against us actually. Not that we did it on purpose, but I, I just think they've got weaker, but now they're starting to strengthen again. So yeah, honestly, I think it could be. I think it could be any of the four that could go up. But like I said, if I had a gun to my head at the minute, I'd be choosing Burnley and Leeds. But that might change on Friday night and over the course of the January transfer window because with the prices that are being banned about for decent championship players. Like I like Cannon, I think he's a decent championship player. I like Morgan Whittaker, which we are looking at. I think he's a decent championship player, but 13 million quid? No chance. I tweeted actually just before I come on the show saying we should be all over this with Tom Cannon, but then people responded saying, yeah, not for 15 million quid. I'm like, what? 15 million quid? I thought it was going to be like something like between 7 and 9 million quid. Same for Morgan Whittaker. We've offered like 7 million quid, and they're saying, no, you need to offer us 15. I'm like, is that half a decent season last year? And he's been crap this year. We're not going to pay 15 million quid for Morgan Whittaker. So I doubt we'll be adding anyone, if I'm honest with you, other than what we've already added. Which was Oliver Son and Ashley Barnes. Ashley Barnes. I love the man, but come on, it's 2025. And he didn't do very well against Reading, to be fair. But yeah, I doubt we'll be making a marquee signing, whereas yourselves and Sheffield United looking like you will be. And I think there's a few rumours that Leeds might be as well. So be interesting to see where we're at the end of the January transfer window.
It's interesting you mentioned about Cannon. This might be egg on my face if we sign him by the time this goes out, which I'm trying to get out as fast as possibly can. Because of that reason, I'm with you on Tom Cannon. Like if we pay 30 million for Tom Cannon, I'd just rather we didn't. If I'm completely honest, I think he scored what 9 goals, what 4 of them came in one game, a couple of them penalties. But there is mad money at the minute in the championship,
Yeah.
and you have had links to players. We've obviously made a really big signing, which I think other clubs had noticed as well, and it felt like a bit of a game changer for us. Obviously, he's got to produce on the pitch, which he says himself. That's the most important thing. It's not how good he's done in the past or how big his name is or how much other clubs had wanted him in the past. It's what he does from here on in that will really determine how good of a signing he is. But you mentioned before about Morgan Whittaker. That's obviously one of your big signings. There's also links to John Joe Shelby. You may not add to it, the
Yeah.
squad that you've got, and I think you've got a good squad anyway. But if you were to add to it in an ideal world, utopian world, where do you think you need to strengthen?
I still think striker. There's a big debate on the Burnley hashtags about whether we need a striker or another sort of like winger or a wide forward. I think John Joe Shelby has been at Goldthorpe. That is fact. It's looking like he will sign. It's mad you mentioned him because I completely forgot about him. But it was there last week, but he hasn't officially signed yet. But I think it's something to do with what we did with John Egan in the summer. Obviously, been out of favour for a while, not played too many games. Obviously, Egan had a massive injury. I don't think John Joe has, but he came to Goldthorpe, our training facility, and he just trained with us for a few weeks with a view to signing. Obviously impressed, and then they were like, "Yeah, fair enough. We'll sign you as backup." I think Shelby will be something similar. I don't think he's going to come in and be a big starter every single week. I think he'll probably be back up behind the likes of Josh Loren and Josh Cullen and Josh Brownhill. I think he's more of a sort of like deeper sort of like midfielder, isn't he, John Joe Shelby? You're not going to have him in the 10 position. He's probably more of an 8, maybe a kind of like a 6, but he's really good. He's got a really good passing range on him, to be fair, as Shelby, if he still has that. Obviously, Morgan Whittaker, you've mentioned. I doubt that gets done. Like we are definitely interested. The club were interested in the summer. We didn't get it over the line. I think that was a time when we should have got it done. January is always notoriously difficult to add players. That's why I tweeted about Cannon because I want a striker. I feel like we don't create enough, and this is the argument. People will say we don't create enough for a striker, though. And I just feel like if we had a proper striker in there making the right runs, are we desperate for a striker at the minute? Probably not, to be fair, because I'm basing this on the last 6 months. And Lyle Foster got injured quite early on in the season. I think it was Blackburn at home. or around that time, which was obviously the game after you guys, and he's not played since then up until the last few weeks. He could come in and do a good job for us, I think. So if he can do that, then we may not need a striker, and so another forward, another wide forward would help because we have looked a little bit poor on the left hand side. It's bizarre, mate. We've got all these players. We've got like Luca Koleosho, Sarmiento, who's on loan from Brighton, who's looked good in the 10. He's looked better in the 10, Sarmiento, rather than on the wings. Koleosho, we had all these hopes for him when we got relegated, but he had a big injury last year. I think he did his cruciate ligament, and he's just come back not the same player. Like he's just like a headless chicken now. He just runs at fullbacks, and he'll get past them, but bizarrely, he just then cuts back every single time. It's like just stick it in the box now, or make the run, make the diagonal run towards the box, and get in front of your man. But yeah, he just keeps making the wrong decision. But it's a tough one because I would like maybe another striker, but again, I'm not sure where they would fit in now. Now we have Lyle Foster, but yeah, it's for me a striker or maybe another wide forward. I think that's why we're looking at Morgan Whittaker to probably play in that forward role. Sorry, but yeah, it's difficult. But again, like I said earlier, I doubt we'll have too much be adding too much in this window unless it's another loan.
Before I head into the normal final two questions, you mentioned Lyle Foster there. I always like to ask, he had time out of the game last season because of his mental health, which I think personally was a really brave thing to do. And I think when I watched the documentary, you seen what he was going through. How's he doing? Is he all right? Like from a mental perspective, from what you know, of course, obviously we'll never know, but
Yeah, I mean, not much has come out, if I'm honest with you. I feel like he's doing well. Like the club are constantly, even during his injury, they were constantly releasing pictures of him and stuff like that, like in training, laughing, joking. Whereas obviously last year when he had the mental health issues, he went back to South Africa to see family. Obviously, that's where he's from. So I don't think he's ever gone back. I think he's stayed at Burnley for his rehabilitation. I think, yeah, he's done well. He's come back and he's looked hungry. I think he scored against Reading. He did, yeah, he scored against Reading. And we're hoping now that he can just kick on and because it's weird with Lyle because we signed him when we were in the Championship when we knew we were going up because at this stage last time we were in the Championship we knew we were promoted already, like it wasn't official but we were going up, so we were signing players for the Premier League. We signed Foster, we signed Ekdal. Foster didn't do that well originally in the Championship. But then Vincent Company at the time, like, just give him time, he'll come good. Then he started the Premier League season really well. Scored at Luton, if I remember rightly. Scored somewhere else. Then had the mental health issues, had some time off, came back against Villa, was fantastic, scored twice. But then again, he's just not really done it in the Championship so far. But he's probably played about 5, 6, 7 games, to be fair. So I'm probably being a little bit harsh. But I feel like, excuse me, I feel like the Premier League suits him more than the Championship. I think higher lines suit him more because he's got pace and he can get in behind and he's really good at finishing one on one. If Lyle Foster goes through one on one and you've got a betting app open, I would quickly stick your mortgage on him. Obviously, don't do that. But you just know he's going to score when he goes clean through. Whereas in the Championship, there's a lot of low blocks, there's a lot of defences against us where he will struggle. But again, I think this might mean that the Sunderland game and the Leeds game, obviously our next two home games, could be good for Lyle. But again, Scott Parker's got this annoying insistence on not playing people in the right positions. And I'm a Scott Parker fan, but I'm getting frustrated with him because Zian Fleming's a 10, yet Zian Fleming's been playing in the 9. And you keep thinking to yourself, well, Fleming's playing there because Foster's injured. Then Foster comes back and he plays Foster in the 10 and Fleming. You're like, Scott, just switch them round. And recently, Lyle's started the game against Reading and he came off the bench against Blackburn and he's played him at left wing. And Zian Fleming stayed up front. It's like, Scott, what are you doing? But then he's been asked about, to be fair to Lyle, he played really well against Reading. I know it's Reading and I don't mean any disrespect to Reading, but they're in the league below. So we'll see how he does against yourselves if he's played there. But I wouldn't personally be playing him on the left hand side of our front four. Even I'd be sticking him in the 9 and then maybe sticking Fleming in the 10. But yeah, be interesting to see what we do.
looking at Scott Parker's judgment, I think you just need to look at his quotes, and that would immediately spark me as red flags because
£4,000 these
quotes.
coats, mate. 4.5 grand that coat. I don't. That's
Terrible.
why he wears it every week. Because 4.5 grand, he's getting his money's worth.
Much preferred Tony Mowbray's Hugo Boss gilet that he wore out until he got sacked. Two questions that I always end with. This one's changed a little bit because we've had the reverse fixture anyway. Um, I've been asking, as you know, all season, which is the one player you would take from Sunderland's team to put in Burnley's team to improve you. But I'll ask a double-ended question, I suppose. Well, two questions in one. That's what I mean. I couldn't get my words out.
Yeah.
Same question again. Who do you take to put into Burnley's team to improve, and who impressed you the most in our reverse fixture?
I can't. I can't remember the reverse fixture very well, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think Bellingham did quite well, if I remember rightly. And is he the one I'd take? I'm not sure. You don't really have a main sort of like striker, do you? As far as I'm aware, you're kind of
Mm,
sort of like playing a similar way to us.
we've got Wilson Isidore, but like he originally came in as what was described as a centre forward that can play on the wing. I personally think he's definitely a centre forward. He's got 8 goals, but he's had patches where he scored for like 5 games and not for 7, then scored in 5. So some will say yes, some will say no, but I think we've got goals all around the pitch, in my honest
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd probably take if it's going to be Bellingham or Rig. I think for me that I'm taking. I think Bellingham's going to be whether it's. It helps that his last name is Bellingham, but I do think he's a good player. But I also feel like there's a hype around Job that I feel like some players in your side probably deserve it a little bit more than he does, like Rig, for example. But there's a hype around Job. And I think with Job, if you buy him now, say, for example, for 20 million quid, I think there's a good chance you're doubling that in a couple of years because he's so young and he's getting better. But I think in terms of fitting into our side, maybe Rig, but yeah, we're not really short on midfielders, to be fair. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But I do think Rig's probably one of the better players in that side.
I'm not going to disagree with you in the slightest. Final question, as always, I'll give you my prediction first, which is, of course, the predictions. I was at Burnley last time and I was stuck behind that big, massive stanchion thing. So it was like I had the split
Funnily enough, it's the
view.
same colour as your living room, that stanchion as well. So you
Yeah,
probably would have liked it.
I didn't mind it. I think we drew 0-0. It looked like we drew 0-0.
Yeah, you
I,
did. You did. It was 0-0.
it was a Friday night. I don't think we're going to get a 0-0 again. I actually think we'll score. Do I see us winning? Well, you hope so. I'm confident, but I think we're looking at a draw. I think we'll see something a little bit different to what we've seen in your home games. I think there'll be a few goals. I'm going to go 2-2.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'll we we have very rarely scored more than one goal in a game. There has been instances where there's been some times where we have only scored once. We score. Sorry, I've just got a text message that's completely through me. In most of our games, we score just the one goal, then not necessarily sit back, but it's yeah. What I'm saying is, I'll be very very shocked. I'd take 2-2 now, by the way, but I'd love a 2-2. I'd rather 2-2 than 0-0. But we don't concede. We haven't conceded 2 goals in a game all season, and we have very rarely scored 2 goals in a game all season. And one thing I have been saying, if you are that way inclined, get under 2.5 goals on every single Burnley game. I think out of all the Burnley games this season, there's probably been like three, not including the FA Cup game, three where there's been over 2.5 goals. No, maybe more than that. Maybe like 5 or 6, actually. I'm just looking now at obviously Blackburn 0-1 to Wolves, Stoke 0-0, Middlesbrough 0-0, Sheffield United 2-0. Then 2-1 against Watford, 2-1 against Norwich, 0-0 against Derby, 1-1 against Middlesbrough, 2-0, 2-0. So even out of all them, there's just the 2 games that were over. Um, I I don't, you know what? It's such a difficult game to predict. I don't know how you're going to play. I don't know how Lefay's going to fit into it, whether he's going to start or not. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go 1-1, and I think we'll both take 1-1. I think it'll be difficult for us to beat you. I think there's so much excitement around Sunderland at the minute, especially with bringing Lefay in. You're doing well in the league. I think you're going to come in your numbers like you always do. You're going to be loud like you always are. And I think it'll be. If you offered me now 1-1 and said, right, everybody go home, we'll just accept a 1-1. Everybody stay at home in the warm. Then I'd take it right now. But yeah, I think 1-1. I'd like a 2-2. If you could offer me 2-2 or 1-1, I'd take 2-2. It'd be more entertaining. But yeah, I don't think many Burnley games this season have had 4 goals in them. So yeah, 1-1 for me. That's what I'm going.
I wouldn't be surprised with either. I just fancy a daft game where things that we'd expect to happen don't happen. So I'm going 2-2, but I'm not going to put money on it because I'll probably lose money by doing that. And right now, buying a house, selling a house, can't really afford to do it. But Joe, thanks for joining. As always, where can we find your stuff? Because I'm going to put my mug on yours. And Burnley fans quite like it. Hopefully, Sunderland fans do too. I get all the best compliments from Burnley fans, so I quite like them on yours.
Yeah, my viewers can be quite nice. They always say, "Great guest, he's a great guy." We have some good viewers over on TurfCast, but yeah, just search TurfCast podcast. We're a YouTube first sort of channel. We do obviously pre-game shows, full-time shows, match reactions. Obviously, the Sunderland ones, annoyingly, are the best ones so far this season because all the Sunderland fans came over to the channel to give it large. If you win again this weekend, that would give me some joy at least. I won't read all the comments, but it's nice to know that people are watching the channel, and I might get an extra fiver off YouTube that particular month. But yeah, just search Turfcast Podcast. We're on YouTube, on all the usual podcast platforms, Facebook, Twitter, even TikTok. But yeah, just search Turfcast, and you'll definitely find us.
Spot on. Right, let's go and do it again, mate. Thanks very much.
Yeah, cheers.